In the early 1800s, gentlemen who felt they had been offended or insulted resorted to issuing a challenge to a duel, and the result could be gunfire in a rather formal setting. The object of a duel was not necessarily to kill or even wound one's opponent. Duels were all about honor and demonstrating one's bravery. The tradition of dueling goes back centuries, and it is believed the word duel, derived from a Latin term, duellum, meaning war between two, entered the English language in the early 1600s. By the mid-1700s, dueling had become common enough that fairly formal codes began to dictate how duels were to be conducted. In 1777, delegates from the west of Ireland met at Clonmel and came up with the Code Duello, a dueling code which became standard in Ireland and in Britain. The rules of the Code Duello crossed the Atlantic and became the generally standard rules for dueling in the United States. Much of the Code Duello dealt with how challenges were to be issued and answered. And it has been noted that many duels were avoided by the men involved either apologizing or somehow smoothing over their differences. Many duelists would merely try to strike a non-fatal wound by, for instance, shooting at their opponent's hip. Yet the flintlock pistols of the day were not terribly accurate. So any duel was bound to be fraught with danger. It should be noted that dueling was almost always illegal, yet fairly prominent members of society participated in duels both in Europe and in America. Notable duels of the early 1800s included the famous encounter between Aaron Burr and Alexander Hamilton, a duel in Ireland in which Daniel O'Connell killed his opponent, and the duel in which American naval hero Stephen Decatur was killed. In the historic duel of July 11, 1804, Alexander Hamilton accepted Aaron Burr's challenge. They, accompanied by companions, reached the dueling ground in Weehawken. The morning's events have sparked debate for over 2 centuries, but it's clear both men discharged their pistols, and Burr's shot struck Hamilton. Severely wounded, Hamilton was carried back to Manhattan, where he succumbed to his injuries the next day. A grand funeral honored him in New York City. Fearing prosecution for murder, Burr fled, and although never convicted, his political career never rebounded from the stain of the fatal duel. The duel remains a tragic chapter, epitomizing the high stakes and personal costs of political rivalry in America's early years. The duel involving Irish attorney Daniel O'Connell was a complex interplay of remorse and political elevation. In 1813, O'Connell's challenge to another lawyer, though without exchanged shots, fueled suspicions of cowardice among his political enemies. Fast forward to January 1815, during a speech advocating Catholic emancipation, O'Connell branded Dublin's government as beggarly. This ignited a series of challenges from a minor Protestant figure, John Destair, known for his dueling reputation. Despite warnings of illegality, O'Connell pledged not to be the aggressor but to defend his honor. The confrontation took place in County Kildare, where O'Connell's shot struck Destair in the hip. Initially perceived as a minor wound, examinations later revealed a fatal abdominal injury, leading to Destair's death 2 days later. O'Connell, deeply affected by having taken a life, adopted a symbolic gesture of wrapping his right hand in a handkerchief when entering Catholic churches, a tangible expression of his desire not to offend God with the hand responsible for a man's death. Despite genuine remorse, O'Connell's steadfastness against the Protestant antagonists bolstered his political standing, making him the dominant figure in 19th-century Irish politics. His bravery in facing Destair undoubtedly contributed to the enduring image of Daniel O'Connell. The fatal duel that claimed the life of renowned American naval hero Stephen Decatur had its roots in a contentious event 13 years prior. In 1807, Captain James Barron's mismanagement of the USS Chesapeake in the Mediterranean resulted in a disgraceful surrender to a British ship, leading to his conviction at a court-martial and a 5-year suspension from the Navy. Returning to the U.S. in 1818, Barron sought to rejoin the Navy. However, Decatur, the nation's esteemed naval hero, opposed Barron's reinstatement based on their shared history. Barron, feeling unfairly treated, exchanged insulting letters with Decatur, escalating into a duel. On March 22, 1820, The duel took place in Bladensburg, Maryland, just outside Washington, D.C. Firing at each other from a distance of 24 feet, the men aimed for non-fatal shots at each other's hips. Decatur's shot, however, struck Barron in the thigh, while Barron's shot found Decatur's abdomen. Both men fell, and in a poignant moment, they reportedly forgave each other as they lay wounded. Tragically, Decatur succumbed to his injuries the next day at the age of 41. Barron, surviving the duel, was reinstated in the Navy but never commanded a ship again. He lived until 1851, reaching the age of 83. The duel left an indelible mark on naval history, revealing the complex interplay of honor, rivalry, and tragedy.